Okay.
Okay, to many, slavery is a thing of the past, a human rights issue that was resolved after the Civil War in 1865. But in reality, this modern-day slavery exists in the form of human trafficking. Estimates have shown that the number of slaves today exceeds the number of slaves that existed in the Atlantic slave trade in the 18th and 19th century. And human trafficking is a continuing global issue. Its victims experience such traumas that most of us cannot even imagine, and has resulted in consequences that have damaged the world, like almost beyond repair. But there are obstacles in the way of us stopping human trafficking permanently. But the unfortunate people that have fallen victim to human trafficking go through traumatic experiences that stay with them for the rest of their lives. An estimated 2.5 million people are forced into labor and or sold into the slave trade at any given time. That human trafficking is a crime that is occurring in as many as 106 countries, and most of these victims are between the ages of 18 and 24, and an estimated 1 million children are being trafficked each year. Many of these people don't realize that they're being trafficked. Like, initially they're willing because they're promised a better job, a better life, but once they get there, they realize that they have fallen into a trap, that they're going to be forced into labor, sexual exploitation, and brutal violence. And yet others are kidnapped off of the streets, and they are smuggled across national borders. Often once they arrive, that they are given falsified identification documents, and basically sold like cattle. And traffickers would, at first, they would sexually assault each of the girls, and those that were not sold, or they were either killed or dropped off in some neighborhood, some rough neighborhood. They don't know where they are, and they're just left there to die. And those who they try to escape, once they get caught, they'll get killed. And also, it's not just, a lot of people think it's just women and children that get trafficked, but it also involves men. And a reason why it's so hard to for them to escape is that they're virtually in prison. They have with no connections, no money, and no way of asking for help. And then after living through something that no one should ever have to experience, many of the victims feel like they are no longer human beings, but animals. Even if they do manage to escape, they never really forget the voices of the their traffickers. That there was a woman named Flora, she had to work 7 to 9 hours a day, even long after the other workers had left. And then the woman, her trafficker, told her that if she killed a dog, she would get in trouble, but if she killed her, she would not get in trouble because no one knew she was there and no one knew she existed. Basically, she was nothing. Yeah. And then, because Flora she was here in the U.S. illegally, so technically she didn't exist. And along with the damage that's done to many of these traffickers, the sex trafficking has pushed, the prostitution has been pushed underground because they're trying to fix it and everything. And so it's hurting the fight to reduce the spread of HIV. And in a 2008 report prepared for the United Nations, confirmed that men who buy sex are the driving force behind the HIV epidemics in Asia. Asia claims that about 350,000 new infections are each year. And so it is thought about 10 million Asian sex workers will sell sex to about 75 million men, who in turn will infect about a future 50 million more partners. So human trafficking is weakening legitimate economies, fueling violence, and threatening the public health and safety, as well as breaking down families and shredding the social fabric that is necessary for progress. And activists like Marlena Morales have seen what happens to these victims. She has spoken about how she held a 12-year-old girl who had been trafficked, and was now dying of AIDS. Because human trafficking is full of just small millions of networks that enslave millions across borders, that it spans continents, that it is especially frustrating obstacles in the way of ending human trafficking for good. This industry makes a global annual profit of about $31.6 billion combined, and it is difficult to convict these traffickers because for every 800 trafficking victims, only one trafficker gets convicted. And then most of the root causes of trafficking is poverty and the lack of law enforcement. And there are also countries like Russia where it's not illegal for the employers to retain the staff's passports or to keep them in prison in their work compounds. And so the current global economic crisis has hurt everyone and further plunging already poor countries into deeper poverty, making them more vulnerable to traffickers. And another obstacle is that many become victims because many people act like the victims who they come here illegally. So once they get here, it's not their fault what happens to them. And so another huge problem is that in the United States, even though the United States is trying to fight human trafficking, our country has failed to properly screen and identify human trafficking victims. And so to help victims, they had to fit a certain criteria. But there's people like Sebastian Pierre he was forced to work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. But he and the other waiters in the restaurant he worked in, they managed to get help. But all his other workers, they fit the criteria, but he didn't. And so he was stuck there, and he caught pneumonia, and he ended up dying about a month later. And so human trafficking is a crime against humanity. Its victims have lost their freedom and made them feel like animals, bought and sold like cattle. This industry has permanently scarred its victims and damaged the world. Unfortunately, there's huge obstacles in the way of ending it. And human trafficking has shown how evil people can be to abuse and kill fellow human beings. And so life for the survivors will never be normal. Some say time will heal all wounds, but that's not true. Time will only give enough to heal enough to continue living. But the memories will just be pushed back into the back of their brains, but it will always be there.